All right, guys, welcome into a Wednesday afternoon live stream. The Ravens don't have their normal practice today because they're heading to Green Bay for joint practices with the Green Bay Packers before their final preseason game. And I thought, hey, man, it would be fun. Let's just hop on here for a little spontaneous roster grades video. Let's talk about whether or not this Ravens roster is good enough to win a Super Bowl championship in 2024. And let's go position by position and grade the roster. A nice little Wednesday afternoon interactive live stream with you guys. Shout out to Leldon, first one in here. Jeff Smith, welcome in. Keep the comments rolling, keep the questions coming. We're gonna go along, position by position, and with each one of these positions, I want to hear your guys' feedback as well as far as the grade for each position. Then we're gonna do an overall roster grade at the end of it. So starting at the quarterback position, we got Lamar Jackson, Josh Johnson, Devin Leary, and Emory Jones. Devin Leary and Emory Jones probably not going to make the roster this year. Josh Johnson, the 38-year-old veteran, and then the two-time MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson. I'm going to go at the quarterback position an A minus. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is an A plus in and of himself, and is the two-time MVP and a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. But I'm going to go with an A minus for the simple fact here of the backup quarterback position has been a question mark at times. Josh Johnson did have a nice game, however, against the Falcons. Marla says we win week 1. Let me know in the comments in the live chat what y'all think about the quarterback position, what the grade is. All right. Next up, the running back position. Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell, and Rasheen Ali. I'm going with a here. All right. So far we got an A minus and an A. So Derrick Henry, he gives this obviously a big boost. And then Justice Hill showed really good stuff last year. Rasheen Ali, a recent draft pick with some pass catching ability and explosion. And then Keaton Mitchell, when this guy comes back, the Thunder and Lightning duo with Justice Hill in there as well. That's a really scary running back room. So I'm going A. If Keaton Mitchell returns back here on the Ravens roster once he recovers from that knee hyperextension. Jeff Smith asks, should we be concerned about QB2? I've seen a lot of talk about this. Some people say, hey, if your starting quarterback goes down for more than a few games, you might be screwed anyways. So backup quarterback's not a huge deal. And I've also heard things like, if your starting quarterback goes down for a few games, you need to stay in the playoff hunt, or maybe you need to win a playoff game with a backup quarterback so you can get your star for the next round. Yeah, it can be a big time a position. Obviously, backup quarterback's huge, but they like Josh Johnson, and Lamar Jackson said he's learned a lot from Josh Johnson mentally about the game, and I thought he played really well in the last preseason game, so I'm not overly concerned right now. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Random Vid. Shout out to Plumber, Dylan. Shout out to everyone for coming out on a Wednesday. We got 65 in here so far. We're going to continue rolling with the roster grades. So we got A minus for the quarterback position, A for the running back position, wide receiver. Now here's where it gets a little hairy because I think wide receiver is probably the weakest position on our team right now. I love Zay Flowers and I love Rashad Bateman. But behind that is a lot of question marks, and it's not a very strong wide receiver core compared to other teams around the league. There's teams with multiple number 1 receivers, like the Eagles with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, and then they drafted Johnny Wilson. Then you got the Bengals with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You got the Lions with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. You got a bunch of teams like the Bucks with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. A lot of really good teams have multiple star receivers. The good news is the Ravens have other stars at other positions like running back and tight end. They got 2 really good ones, which we'll get into in a minute. But wide receiver, I love Zay Flowers, 1,000 yards of production as a rookie when you count in the playoff production, especially the big game against the Kansas City Chiefs, minus the bad fumble. Rashad Bateman behind Zay. I like Rashad, but again, the most production he's ever had in a season is 500 yards. But when he's been healthy, he flashes. And, last year made some nice plays, and he really wasn't accustomed and integrated into the offensive planning with Todd Monken because he didn't attend training camp. This year, he had some time to be in training camp and show Todd Monken what he could do and build the trust. So Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and then Tylan Wallace, you could put him at wide receiver 3 right now if you wanted to, with the plays that he's made in training camp, plus the chemistry he's built with Lamar Jackson. But Nelson Aguilar is obviously in here as a starting receiver, and he makes plays at opportune times. So I'm going to go grade for the wide receiver position, a C. Let me know in the chat, what is your grade for the Ravens wide receiver position? Like I said, I think it's probably the weakest spot on the Baltimore Ravens roster. I'm not overly worried about it because I love Zay and Bate. I'm excited about, the future of Devontae Walker. I think Tylan Wallace can make some plays. Anthony Miller, Dayton Wade, Russell Gage are all in the mix here. Dayton Wade showed some really exciting things in preseason so far and in training camp. So the cupboard's not bare here, but, it's probably one of the weakest positions on the Ravens. So we got Daddy Bar says F, wide receiver B, C+. It also depends on, how good is Zay Flowers? Because if Zay Flowers turns into like a 1,200, 1,400 type of receiver, like a number 1, top 10 in the NFL type receiver, then that obviously is going to boost your room up to like that B, flirting with that A range, especially if Bateman and Nelly make some plays as well. But I'm going with the C. Let's go on to the tight end position. You got to go A+ here, man. It can't get any better. Like the Ravens have the best tight end room in football, and it's not close. Mark Andrews is an all-pro. Isaiah Likely, he is a maniac with his catch radius, his speed, his route running. You saw him average close to 70 yards per game last year whenever Mark Andrews went down with injury. So he's a top 10 starting caliber tight end in this league. So you got 2 number 1 tight ends, and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Then you got Charlie Kohler, who was in the same draft class as Isaiah Likely and has a big catch radius, can run routes. He's got some sneaky speed, but also put on some muscle this offseason to be a dominant inline blocker. Tight end A++ from D Soto, fantastic floss. Love that name. Daddy Bars, good luck with your season, Ravens fans. Zay is getting over 1K this year, I think, as well, man. I think Zay Flowers is, he had 1,000 yards when you count the playoffs. He had 850 so in the regular season. And Lamar and him were just a few inches away from connecting on a few deep balls that would have easily put him over the 100 or the 1,000 yard mark. And I think he's going to be even better this year. So Zay Flowers, I think, is easily going over 1,000. I think he'll be in that 1,200 range. Next position, fullback. A+, man. You could have included him in the running back room. Just if you guys are just tuning in, we're doing a roster grades and talking about how position by position, how good is each one of these position groups, and is the Ravens roster good enough to win a Super Bowl? Quarterback was A-, running back we went A, wide receiver C, and tight end A+. Fullback A+. I love me some Patrick Ricard, Pancake Pat, about to be smashing linebackers. If you guys are enjoying the stream so far, go ahead and smash the like button as well. Offensive line. This is a real tricky one because there's potential here, there's excitement here, but there's also some questions here. And, left tackle Ronnie Stanley, if he returns to even like 80 or 90% of 2019 All-Pro Ronnie, or 2018 All-Pro, like Pro Bowl Ronnie, then we're talking about an offensive line group that's really bolstered, really has a high floor. But if we're talking about last year and the year before Ronnie, where he's really struggling with injury, then the offensive line could get ugly pretty quick. But let's start, left to right. Left tackle Ronnie Stanley. His health is a big question mark. He's in the last year of his contract after that restructure. Left guard Andrew Voorhees. Very, very excited about Voorhees. He's looked pretty good in preseason besides one awful rep I saw. He's really strong. He had a year to develop. And we also, so then in the center position, we got Nick Samek, who came on as a backup, Tyler Linderbaum. Ben Cleveland also has played some center in preseason and looked good, looking really good at center. Right guard, Daniel Falele. A lot of potential here for Daniel Falele to be a really dominant guard with the strength, the length, the size. He's got to work on his get off and his run game work, but he's done pretty well as a pass protector in there so far at the guard position based off his preseason film. Patrick McCarry at right tackle and Roger Rosengarten. I feel pretty good about the right tackle spot because McCarry has starting experience. He can come in, he can help bolster that and provide some stability there, at right tackle. But I'm looking at Rosengarten, the rookie, to start, man. I think he's looked so good in preseason. Overall, the offensive line, I'm going with the B because I like, Stanley, Linderbaum, and Rosengarten. I think, your bookend tackles that are athletic and looks good so far based off preseason and training camp. The center spot there, and then the guard spots are a little bit of a question mark. Some unknowns with Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele, but then you got some solid depth as well with Nick Samak, Josh Jones at the tackle position. He looked pretty good in preseason. The 6th-round rookie from last year with Salah, Ben Cleveland's in the mix at right guard. So Random Viz agrees B for offensive line. Rue says C for offensive line. So we're in the same ballpark here. I think the Ravens offensive line has the potential to be really good, but they also have some question marks that could leave them not so good. So some definitely some room for variation here on the offensive line. And we just got to wait and see till the regular season. Good news for the Ravens and the Ravens flock, for the flock family. We only got to wait about 15 more days until the Ravens kick off against the Chiefs in the NFL season opener. And we'll find out real quick when they're tested against, guys like Chris Jones on the Chiefs. All right. So we graded the offense so far. Let's go down to the defense. In our base 3-4 here, we got the defensive line. I'm going A. I'm excited about this defensive line. You got pretty much every starter returning back from last year, and they were a good D-line last year. In fact, they were a D-line that, helped the Ravens lead the NFL in sacks, and that's largely due to Justin Madubuike, who had 13 sacks and led the NFL in all interior defensive lineman sacks and he was a breakout, man. Then he got paid a monster contract, well-deserved. Broderick Washington, he's looked good in training camp and a nice solid depth piece. He was signed to an extension last year during training camp. Michael Pierce, the vet, the OG, the dude that can ragdoll a center, push him back into the quarterback's lap, and clog lanes in the run game. Travis Jones, same thing. He can play nose. He can play 3-tech. They have him listed as the right DN here in the 3-4 base D, but more of a nose than a D end, but obviously can move around the offensive line. And then we got Brent Urban, who I really like. I love his length and his ability to disrupt, and he's just a Raven. The way he plays hard nosed, high effort. So your top guys here: Brent Urban, Travis Jones, Michael Pierce, Madubuike, Brody. Really like this defensive line. Let's move on to the outside linebacker room. Oh, we got to give you a grade, right? So we said A for the defensive line. What do you guys think about it? Yeah, so Killer says D-line A. D-line is A. Yep. O-line is C. Damaso asked about David Ojabo. Well, let's talk about it because we're going to move in here to the outside linebacker position. I'm fired up for David Ojabo, man. He looked so good in his 10 pass rushing snaps. He produced 2 pressures, and so that's a 20% pressure rate. That's really good. And he's just getting his feet wet. That was his first time back in game action, and he's going to be a problem. I really believe that. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be a problem for offenses. He's too talented. He is too athletic. I was looking at some college tape of him literally earlier today where he was just throwing guys around. They couldn't handle his speed. They couldn't handle his spin moves. Then you got his coach there, Chuck Smith, who's helping to develop him. And I listened to his interview yesterday, and I was really excited for Ajabo, what his mentality and his mindset going into the year. So I think David Ajabo, man, I'm fired up for him. I think he's going to be a really talented Raven. As long as he's healthy, I 100% believe he can flirt with double-digit sacks this year. And I believe the same exact thing for Odafe Owe. His season high has been 5. He's hit 5 sacks 2 years. Last year, he dealt with some injury. I think he started 11 games or so. And he also had some of his snaps eaten up by Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy, who came in. So, man, I think that Owe and Ajabo have the potential to be a really nasty duo, like a really nasty duo. I mean, I think these guys can wreck shop as long as they're healthy. Then you got the attention drawn in from the inside with Jones, Pierce, and Matabike, and the defensive line is going to be a force, man, and which is exciting because the secondary is absolutely nasty, which we'll talk about in a second, and that can marry up with the pass rush and be a really good defense again. Owe and Ajabo combined for 18 sacks. Absolutely, man. I really think that that's on the table. It is a question mark. You got to see it. You got to see him go out there and produce. But anytime Ajabo's been out there, he got a strip sack. His first sack was a strip sack against Joe Burrow the year that he had the Achilles tear when he came back. He came back late in the year, had a strip sack on Joe Burrow in his first game action. And then last year, before he had that ankle injury, had a strip sack on CJ Stroud in week 1. So, the dude, when he's out there, he hits the quarterback. You just got to see him out there, man. I'm really fired up for what Ajabo can do. Next position, we'll go through the other guys real quick here at outside linebacker. So we got Owe, we got Ajabo, and Adisa Isaac. By the way, I liked what I saw from Adisa Isaac in the preseason game. Had some nice rushes. Had a nice run stop as well, where he tracked down the running back from behind, high effort. Isaac looks good, but then apparently he tweaked his other hamstring that, he had the other hamstring that has been keeping him out. And then during the preseason game, tweaked the other one. So got to stay healthy, but I liked what I saw in this first preseason action. So Owe, Ajabo, Adisa Isaac. And then we got Kyle Van Noy, Tavius Robinson, and Malik Ham's now on the IR. We got Joe Evans. I like the outside linebacker room, especially now that we saw Ajabo back fully healthy. He was cleared for game action. He looked good. But, your starters there and Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe, pretty solid group. And then, Tavius Robinson, Ajabo, and Adisa Isaac to provide depth. I feel good about the outside linebacker room. We'll go with a B-, just because you got to see these guys do it, but they're so talented. If they live up to their talent, then we're talking about like an A grade. But right now I'm going to go with a B. Inside linebacker, I'm going A here, man. I like the inside linebacker room. Roquan Smith gives the room a huge boost. And then the rookie, or not the rookie, I'm sorry, the second-year player, Trenton Simpson. And then Malik Harrison's been a solid player. Chris Board, the vet, Josh Ross. I like the depth there, and I like the ceiling and the floor of your top 2 starters there with Roquan Smith, who's an all-pro, and Trenton Simpson, who's an absolute menace. Just as far as his athleticism, his size, speed. I remember going to training camp last year and seeing the linebackers do their individual drills and just looking at Trenton Simpson and thinking, man, this dude is just a specimen. He's just athletic. He pops off the field, his size and his speed. His thighs are like tree trunks, man. Like, the dude is just a beast. And him and Roquan Smith are going to be fun to watch this year. Let's go to the cornerback position. Cornerback A, man, 100% A. Safety, you already know, is an A as well. But cornerback, let's talk about this cornerback room. Yeah, Killer says same thing. A+. Yeah, Loudon, I agree. A+ for corner, man. Marlon Humphrey, he's an all-pro. He's lost, I think, about 10, 15 pounds this year, has been super sticky in coverage, and has gotten his hands on a lot of footballs. I think he's a little dealing with something right now as far as missing some practice time, but I think he'll be all right. And Marlon Humphrey, his biggest question mark the last season or two has been his availability, dealing with some injuries. But I really believe that Marlon Humphrey healthy is still a force to be reckoned with. And same thing with Brandon Stevens, man. Brandon Stevens was the best, most consistent corner last year for us. Like the dude, I don't know if you guys saw from my episode of Ravens Reports the other day, but he was the second highest player when it comes to EPA in the entire NFL added. So like EPA, expected points added, he was the second best defender in the National Football League in that category. Brandon Stevens right in the mix with like Myles Garrett, which is absolutely absurd. So Brandon Stevens was a stud last year, and he's entering his fourth year, his contract year. So he's motivated. He's had a great camp. It's reported that he had the best camp of training camp as far as like, the media members and everything giving grades out. Like he was one of the stars of training camp. He's primed for a monster year next to Marlon Humphrey. And then the rookie, Nate Wiggins, was an animal in his first preseason game. He had the highest PFF grade out of all the first round rookies with a 90.9 or something like that. Just really, really good. Sticky. He gets his head around, which is really encouraging, especially for such a young player to get his head around and locate the ball and get past deflections. The dude's got really long arms. He's got speed. He's got wiggle in his hips. And then, you look at the depth behind the corners and you see guys like Jalen Armour-Davis and Trayvon Mullen, who looked really good. Bump Cooper looked good. Kadar Holman. I love the depth and the high-end upside of this corner room, especially, look at Arthur Millette, Pepe Williams. They're loaded with talent in the cornerback room. And then safety. The Ravens have the best safety room, the best safety duo in football. And it's not even a question mark. The Ravens have the best tight end duo in football, and the Ravens have the best safety duo in football. Look at their safeties right now. Kyle Hamilton, who's an all-pro. Marcus Williams, who gets several interceptions every single year that he's healthy. Super rangy. I think he was ranked as like the 8th overall safety, and Kyle Hamilton was like number 1 or 2. I think he was right behind the Buccaneer safety, Antoine Winfield. The Ravens defense has got guys at every level. Like every level. Up front, you got Matabike, all-pro. In the middle, you got Roquan Smith, all-pro. In the back end, you got Kyle Hamilton, all-pro. So you got an all-pro at every level. And then you got studs all around them that just because they haven't hit an all-pro doesn't mean that they're not, forces to be reckoned with. Safety by Killer A or Killer X says A+++. I agree, man. I'm excited about this team. Overall, probably the weakest positions for the Ravens this year, I'm going to go with wide receiver, maybe outside linebacker, depending on the health of some of these guys. And then O-line is a question mark. But, the Ravens roster as a whole is really good. I would say the strength of this team is the secondary, the running backs, and the tight ends. This team's going to be really good. I can't wait to watch the opener with you guys against the Kansas City Chiefs in 15 days. If you guys enjoyed this little impromptu live stream, make sure to smash the like button. If you're not watching back live, if you're just watching it back and you're not watching it live, make sure to put in the comments what you think the strengths and weaknesses of the roster are. And do you think the Ravens have a Super Bowl roster? My answer to the question of the title is yes, absolutely. And I also think it's possible that they're not done. Eric DeCosta, look at the last few years, man. I'll leave you with this. Guys that he's traded for at the trade deadline. Guys like Yannick Ngakoue, 3rd-round pick. Marcus Peters, Calais Campbell, Roquan Smith. They had a deal in place for Derrick Henry last year before the Titans owner vetoed it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they make another move at the trade deadline. They always look for value, that Super Bowl push, that piece. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens make a move at either receiver, outside linebacker, or some position to bolster the roster. We'll see where we're at the trade deadline, but I'm excited, man. As always, smash the like button if you enjoyed today's content. Leave a comment down below, man. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.